You're eating foods that are quietly damaging your health, and most people have no idea. These are everyday UK foods millions consume without a second thought. Doctors and nutrition experts have warned for years about what these foods can do when eaten regularly. Weight gain, blood sugar spikes, heart strain, long-term health risks that don't show up overnight. What makes this worse is that many of these products are marketed as harmless, traditional, or even healthy, and the labels don't tell the full story. And that's where the real danger hides. In this video, I'm breaking down 10 UK foods you should seriously avoid. I'll show you why they're bad, what experts say about them, and how they affect your body. Then, I'll share 5 healthier UK foods you should be eating instead, simple swaps that actually support your health. And finally, I'll show you exactly how to spot and stop eating these fake foods for good. Stick around because chances are at least one of these is already in your kitchen. 10. Kraft Singles processed cheese slices. For decades, these slices have been a fridge staple in UK households. They melt perfectly on toast, burgers and sandwiches. They're cheap, convenient, and marketed as cheese, so most people assume they're getting calcium, protein, and real dairy goodness. Parents use them for quick meals, students rely on them for budget cooking, and because they sit right next to real cheese in supermarkets, they feel just as legitimate. But here's the catch. Despite the packaging, Kraft Singles are not legally classified as real cheese in many markets. They're sold as a processed cheese product, a blend made from small amounts of cheese combined with emulsifiers, vegetable oils, milk derivatives, salt, and additives. Nutrition experts repeatedly warn that ultra-processed cheese products contain less calcium and protein than real cheese, are high in sodium, and rely on additives to mimic melt and texture rather than natural dairy structure. UK public health guidance consistently advises limiting ultra-processed foods, and processed cheese is often highlighted as a prime example. Consumer reviews tell the same story. Many people describe an artificial taste, an oily residue, and an off texture compared to real cheese. That isn't accidental. It's the result of industrial engineering, not farming or traditional cheese making. From a medical perspective, the issue isn't eating one slice occasionally. The problem is regular consumption. When processed cheese replaces real cheese in the diet, you end up with more salt and fewer nutrients, a higher intake of additives linked to poor diet quality, and lower overall nutritional value while calories remain high. Over time, diets heavy in ultra-processed foods are associated with weight gain, increased cardiovascular risk, and poor metabolic health. This is why many dietitians recommend choosing real cheese in smaller amounts instead of relying on processed substitutes. And if a food that literally isn't real cheese made it onto this list, what comes next is even more unsettling, because it's something millions of UK families rely on every single week. 9. Iceland. Luxury ready meals. Iceland ready meals are a go-to for many UK households. They're affordable, filling, and marketed as comforting or luxury, which makes them feel like a proper alternative to home-cooked food. For busy families, they've become a regular habit rather than an occasional backup. The problem is how these meals are made. Many are ultra-processed, packed with salt, saturated fat, refined carbohydrates, and additives to boost flavor and shelf life. A single meal can contain a large portion of an adult's recommended daily salt intake, putting strain on the heart and blood pressure. Health. Experts consistently warn that frequent reliance on ready meals is linked to weight gain and poor metabolic health. They're designed to taste good quickly, not to nourish, which makes it easy to overeat without feeling satisfied. Consumer reviews often mention greasy sauces and overly salty flavors, signs of heavy processing. When these meals replace fresh food week after week, overall diet quality quietly declines. And what follows next is something even more familiar, a product many people eat without question, believing it's completely harmless. 8. Richmond pork sausages. Richmond sausages are everywhere in the UK. They're cheap, familiar, and often one of the first meat products people learn to cook. For many households, they're a default choice for breakfasts, quick dinners, and weekend fry-ups. Because they've been around for so long and are sold so widely, most people never stop to question what they're actually eating. What sets Richmond sausages apart, and not in a good way, is their exceptionally low pork content compared to consumer expectations. While people imagine sausages as mostly meat, these are heavily diluted with water, starches, rusk, flavorings, and stabilizers. This formulation allows the brand to keep prices low while maintaining a consistent texture, but it also means the nutritional value is dramatically reduced. Health professionals regularly raise concerns about products like this because they fall squarely into the category of ultra-processed meat. They are high in salt, often high in saturated fat, and provide far less protein than whole meat alternatives. UK dietary guidance consistently advises limiting processed meats due to their association with high blood pressure, heart disease, and other long-term health risks. There's also a reason many consumers describe these sausages as unusually soft, pale, or sponge-like. That texture isn't a sign of quality, it's the result of heavy processing designed to mask the lack of real meat. Over time, relying on products like this can quietly shift someone's diet away from whole foods and toward calorie-dense, nutrient-poor options. The real danger is how normalized these sausages have become. When something like this feels harmless and routine, it's easy to ignore how often it's eaten. But small dietary habits repeated week after week are exactly what shape long-term health outcomes. And what's coming up challenges a food people rarely criticize at all, something many families buy believing it's a sensible, even responsible choice. 7. Kellogg's Frosties. Kellogg's Frosties have been a breakfast staple in UK homes for decades. Bright packaging and family-friendly branding make them feel harmless, especially for children, and many people treat them as a normal way to start the day. The problem is the sugar. Frosties are made up largely of added sugar, causing rapid blood sugar spikes followed by crashes. Nutrition experts often point out that, metabolically, this isn't much different from eating dessert for breakfast. Despite being labelled as fortified, added vitamins don't cancel out the effects of excess sugar. Regular consumption is linked to weight gain, poor energy control, and dental issues, particularly in children. Because they don't taste overly sweet, Frosties often avoid scrutiny. That's what makes them dangerous. They blend into daily routines while quietly increasing sugar intake. And coming up is a food that looks far more basic and trustworthy, yet causes problems for a completely different reason. 6. Warburton's White Toasty bread. White bread is one of the most normalised foods in the UK, and Warburton's White Toasty is a product almost everyone recognises. It's soft, affordable, easy to toast, and heavily associated with comfort and convenience. For many households, it's the default choice for sandwiches, toast, and quick meals. Because it looks simple and traditional, most people never think of it as something that could be harmful. The issue lies in how heavily refined this bread is. During processing, most of the natural fibre, vitamins and minerals found in whole grains are stripped away. What's left is a product that digests extremely quickly, causing rapid spikes in blood sugar levels. Health experts often compare refined white bread to sugar in terms of how the body processes it. Fast in, fast out, with very little nutritional payoff. To compensate for what's lost, manufacturers add back certain vitamins and minerals, which can make the product appear nutritionally adequate on paper. But doctors and dietitians consistently point out that fortification doesn't replace the benefits of natural fibre and intact grains. A diet high in refined carbohydrates like white bread is associated with increased risk of weight gain, insulin resistance, and poor gut health. Another concern is how easy it is to overconsume. White bread is soft, low in fibre, and not very filling, which means people often eat more of it without realising. 2 slices quickly become 4. Toast becomes sandwiches, then snacks. Over time, this can quietly push daily carbohydrate intake far beyond what the body needs, especially when paired with processed fillings. Public health guidance in the UK regularly advises choosing whole grain options over white bread for exactly this reason. Yet white bread remains dominant because it's cheap, familiar, and heavily marketed as a family staple. Reviews from consumers often praise its softness and taste, the very qualities that make it nutritionally weaker. What makes this food particularly deceptive is that it doesn't feel indulgent. There's no sugar rush, no strong flavor, no obvious warning signs. It simply blends into daily life, slowly shaping blood sugar patterns and appetite regulation without drawing attention to itself. And the next item on this list is even more misleading because it wears a healthy image on the surface, despite hiding a surprisingly high sugar content in plain sight. 5. Müller Corner yogurts. Müller Corner yogurts are often picked up with the belief that they're a healthy choice. They sit in the chilled aisle next to plain yogurt, fruit pots, and other foods people associate with nutrition and balance. Many shoppers see yogurt as a smart option, something good for digestion, calcium intake, and overall health. And Müller Corner has built a strong image around that trust. The problem is how much added sugar these products contain. While they're marketed as yogurt with fruit or crunchy toppings, a large portion of the calories actually comes from sugar, syrups, and sweetened mix-ins. In many cases, the sugar content rivals that of desserts, not health foods. The yogurt itself is often sweetened, and the corner section adds an extra hit of sugar on top. Health experts regularly warn that flavored yogurts can be misleading because people underestimate how sugary they are. The presence of dairy and probiotics creates a health halo, making it easy to ignore the ingredient list. But from a nutritional standpoint, regularly eating high-sugar yogurts can contribute to weight gain, blood sugar instability, and increased cravings for sweet foods throughout the day. Another issue is portion perception. Because these yogurts are sold as single-serve pots, many people assume they're automatically balanced. In reality, the small size masks how concentrated the sugar content is. For children, this is especially concerning, as sweetened yogurts are often seen as a safe daily snack, when they behave more like a treat. Consumer reviews often praise the taste and texture, which again highlights the problem. These products are designed to be highly palatable, not nutritionally optimal. Over time, relying on flavored yogurts instead of plain yogurt with real fruit can quietly increase daily sugar intake without people realizing where it's coming from. Before we go any further, if this is already changing how you look at foods in your fridge, take a second to like this video and subscribe. Videos like this take time to research, and subscribing means you won't miss future breakdowns that could genuinely improve your health. What's coming up next is a product many people switched to believing it was the healthier alternative, but the reality is far more complicated once you look at how it's made. 4. Flora plant-based spreads. Flora spreads are often chosen by people trying to make healthier choices. They're marketed as plant-based, heart-friendly, and better than butter, which has helped them earn a place in millions of UK fridges. For years, switching from butter to margarine-style spreads like Flora was seen as a responsible move, something doctors and adverts once openly encouraged. The concern lies in how these spreads are actually made. Flora products are highly refined blends of seed oils, processed through multiple industrial steps to extract, deodorize, and stabilize the fats. By the time the spread reaches your toast, it bears very little resemblance to anything you'd recognize as a whole food. Additives, emulsifiers, and flavorings are then used to give it the taste and texture people expect. While plant-based oils aren't inherently bad, nutrition experts increasingly warn that overconsumption of ultra-processed fats may contribute to inflammation and poor metabolic health, especially when they replace more natural fat sources entirely. The issue isn't using a small amount occasionally, it's the idea that these spreads are unlimited, everyday health foods. Another problem is messaging. Many people assume that because something is plant-based, it must automatically be good for them. This creates a blind spot where ingredient lists are ignored. Some Flora spreads contain a long list of processed components that most people wouldn't cook with at home, yet they're consumed daily without a second thought. Consumer feedback often focuses on how easy these spreads are to use and how smoothly they melt. But that convenience is a direct result of heavy processing, not nutritional quality. When used generously and frequently, they can quietly add a large amount of refined fat to the diet without providing much in return. What makes this particularly tricky is that these products don't feel like junk food. There's no sugar rush, no obvious indulgence. They're subtle, routine, and almost invisible, which is often how the most impactful dietary habits form. What comes next on this list is something many people drink thinking it counts as fruit, vitamins, or hydration, yet its effects on the body tell a very different story. 3. Ribena blackcurrant drink. Ribena has long been associated with fruit, vitamins, and childhood memories. Many people still think of it as a healthier alternative to fizzy drinks, something rooted in black currants and often linked to vitamin C. Because it's been around for generations and is commonly diluted with water, it rarely raises alarm bells when people pour a glass. The reality is that Ribena, like many fruit drinks, is nutritionally very similar to soft drinks. Despite changes to sugar levels over the years, it still delivers a concentrated hit of sweetness and acidity that the body processes quickly. Health experts point out that liquid sugar is particularly problematic because it doesn't trigger the same fullness signals as solid food, making it easy to consume far more than intended. Another issue is dental health. Even diluted, fruit drinks like Ribena are highly acidic, which contributes to tooth enamel erosion. Dentists in the UK have repeatedly warned that regular consumption of fruit drinks is a major factor in tooth decay, especially in children. Because these drinks don't carry the same stigma as cola or energy drinks, they're often given more freely and more often. There's also a perception problem. Many people believe fruit drinks count toward daily fruit intake or hydration in a meaningful way. In reality, they lack the fiber found in whole fruit and deliver sugar in a rapidly absorbable form. This combination can contribute to blood sugar spikes and increased cravings, particularly when consumed between meals. Reviews often praise Ribena for its strong flavor and nostalgic appeal, but that intensity is part of the issue. It encourages repeated consumption, often throughout the day, rather than being treated as an occasional treat. What follows on this list is something people turn to for convenience and comfort. A food that feels like a full meal but is engineered to keep you coming back for more. 2. Dr. Oetker Ristorante Frozen Pizza. Frozen pizza is one of the most normalized meals in the UK, and Dr. Oetker Ristorante sits right at the top of that category. It's thin, crispy, widely available, and often marketed as a lighter, more refined option compared to other frozen pizzas. For many people, it feels like a reasonable compromise. Not fast food, not takeaway, just something easy to throw in the oven. But when health experts examine products like this, the concerns stack up quickly. Frozen pizzas are ultra-processed from base to topping, built from refined flour, processed oils, added sugars, salt, and flavor enhancers. A single pizza can contain a large portion of an adult's recommended daily salt intake, alongside high levels of saturated fat and very little fiber. The issue isn't just what's in the pizza, it's how it affects eating behavior. Ultra-processed foods like this are designed to be intensely palatable while offering low satiety. In simple terms, they taste good but don't fill you up properly. That makes it easier to eat the entire pizza and still feel hungry shortly after. There's also the illusion of control. Because it's portioned, labeled, and cooked at home, it feels more responsible than ordering takeaway. But nutritionally, it often delivers the same drawbacks: refined carbohydrates that spike blood sugar, fats that add calories quickly, and minimal micronutrient value. Public health guidance in the UK consistently places foods like frozen pizza in the category of items that should be eaten sparingly, not routinely. When they become a regular dinner option, they quietly replace meals built around vegetables, protein, and whole ingredients. Instead of ending with a warning about what comes next, it's worth sitting with this thought. If a food can feel this normal while being this engineered, what else have we stopped questioning without realizing it? 1. McVitie's Digestive biscuits. McVitie's Digestive biscuits are one of the most trusted foods in the UK. They're found in almost every cupboard, offered with tea, packed into lunchboxes, and eaten without guilt. The word digestive alone gives them an aura of wholesomeness, as if they're somehow better for you than other biscuits, or at least harmless in moderation. For many people, they don't even register as junk food. That perception is exactly what makes them so deceptive. Despite the name, digestive biscuits are ultra-processed snacks high in refined flour, sugar, and fat. Nutritionally, they are far closer to a dessert than anything that supports digestion or health. The digestive label comes from a 19th century marketing claim linked to baking soda, not from any proven digestive benefit. Modern nutrition experts are very clear that these biscuits do nothing to aid digestion. What's particularly concerning is how easy they are to overconsume. One biscuit quickly becomes 2, then 3, often without anyone noticing. They're calorie-dense, low in fiber, and not very filling, which means they add energy without reducing hunger. Over time, this pattern contributes to excess calorie intake, weight gain, and poor blood sugar control, especially when biscuits are treated as an everyday habit rather than an occasional treat. Health guidance in the UK consistently advises limiting foods high in sugar and refined carbohydrates, yet digestives often escape scrutiny because they don't taste overly sweet and feel traditional. Consumer reviews frequently describe them as plain or not too sugary, which actually makes them more dangerous. They slide under the radar. For many households, this is the food eaten most often on this entire list. Not because it's the worst tasting or the most indulgent, but because it feels safe. And that false sense of safety is what allows it to quietly undermine diet quality day after day. Now that you've seen which everyday foods quietly work against your health, the next step isn't fear. It's replacement. You don't need extreme diets or expensive products. You just need real foods that do what food is supposed to do: nourish you. Here are 5 simple, widely available UK foods that health experts consistently recommend eating more often. Recommended food 1. Jordan's whole grain oats. For many people, breakfast is where the day goes wrong first. Sugary cereals and refined carbs create quick energy, followed by crashes, hunger, and cravings. Whole grain oats are different. They're simple, filling, and have been eaten for generations without needing marketing tricks to justify them. What makes oats powerful is their high fiber content, especially beta-glucan, which helps slow digestion and stabilize blood sugar. Nutrition experts consistently recommend oats for heart health, gut health, and sustained energy. Unlike ultra-processed cereals, plain oats contain no hidden sugars or additives. Just one ingredient. When you replace sugary breakfasts with whole grain oats, people often notice fewer cravings later in the day and better appetite control. It's not flashy food, but it quietly supports your body instead of fighting against it. And that's exactly what most diets are missing. Recommended food 2. Yeo Valley Natural Yogurt. Yogurt is often marketed as healthy, but most supermarket yogurts are heavily sweetened. Natural yogurt strips all that back. It's simply milk and live cultures, nothing else, which is how yogurt was meant to be consumed. The benefit comes from its protein, calcium, and probiotics, which support muscle health, bone strength, and digestion. Unlike flavored yogurts, natural yogurt doesn't spike blood sugar, and it keeps you fuller for longer. Health professionals often recommend it as a base food, rather than a snack disguised as dessert. Once people switch to natural yogurt and add real fruit themselves, taste preferences often change. Sweetened versions start to feel overpowering. This is one of those foods that quietly retrains your palate instead of overstimulating it. Recommended food 3. St. U free-range eggs. Eggs have been misunderstood for years, but modern nutrition guidance places them among the most nutrient-dense whole foods available. Fresh eggs provide high-quality protein, healthy fats, and essential vitamins like B12, choline, and vitamin D. Unlike processed breakfast meats or packaged protein products, eggs contain no additives or fillers. They're filling, versatile, and support muscle maintenance and brain health. This makes them especially valuable for breakfast or light meals. When people rely on eggs instead of processed options, they often feel fuller with fewer calories and less snacking. It's a simple food with a strong nutritional payoff. Recommended food. 4. Dove's Farm whole grain bread. Bread doesn't need to be eliminated. It needs to be chosen properly. Whole grain bread retains the fiber and nutrients stripped out of white bread during refining. That fiber slows digestion, improves gut health, and prevents sharp blood sugar spikes. Health guidance in the UK consistently recommends whole grain carbohydrates over refined ones. People who switch often report feeling fuller with fewer slices and less need to snack shortly after meals. That's the difference fiber makes. Whole grain bread still feels familiar and comforting, but it behaves very differently in the body. It supports steady energy instead of creating cycles of hunger, which is why it's often recommended as a realistic long-term swap rather than a restriction. Recommended food. 5. John West sardines. Tinned sardines are one of the most underrated foods in the UK. The tin puts people off, but nutritionally, they're exceptional. Sardines are rich in omega-3 fats, high-quality protein, calcium, vitamin D, and B12. Nutrients many people are deficient in. Because sardines are small fish, they accumulate far less mercury than larger fish like tuna. This makes them one of the safest seafood options to eat regularly. UK health guidance encourages oily fish consumption, and tinned sardines count fully toward that recommendation. What makes sardines especially valuable is their simplicity. No processing tricks, no additives, just real food preserved safely. When people replace processed meats with sardines even once or twice a week, the nutritional payoff is significant, especially for heart and brain health. At this point, the question isn't just what these foods are doing to your health, it's how to recognize them before they become routine. That's where we go next. How to spot and avoid fake UK foods. By now, one thing should be clear. The biggest danger isn't just what you eat, it's how easily unhealthy foods blend into everyday life. Most of the foods on this list didn't look suspicious. They weren't shocking, extreme, or obviously harmful. They were normal, familiar, trusted, and that's exactly why so many people consume them without realizing the long-term impact. The first step to avoiding fake UK foods is learning to read past the front of the packaging. Words like digestive, plant-based, fortified, low-fat, or made with real ingredients are marketing tools, not health guarantees. Turn the product around and look at the ingredient list. If sugar, refined flour, vegetable oils, or additives dominate the first few ingredients, that's a red flag, especially if the food is something you eat daily. Another major warning sign is ultra-processing. If a food has been engineered to last weeks or months, melt perfectly, taste intense, or stay soft indefinitely, it's likely been heavily altered. Nutrition experts consistently advise building your diet around foods that resemble their original form. Whole grains instead of refined ones, plain yogurt instead of flavored, real cheese instead of processed slices, and whole fruit instead of fruit. Drinks. Portion habits matter too. Many of the foods on this list become harmful not because of one serving, but because they're eaten routinely and mindlessly. Biscuits with tea every day. Sugary cereals every morning. Ready meals several nights a week. Breaking the habit is often more important than eliminating a food completely. A simple rule helps. If you wouldn't recognize most of the ingredients in your own kitchen, that food shouldn't be an everyday staple. Swapping doesn't have to be expensive or extreme. Wholemeal bread instead of white, plain yogurt with fruit instead of sweetened pots, water or milk instead of fruit drinks. Small changes, repeated consistently, make the biggest difference. If this video made you stop and rethink even one item in your cupboard, take a second to like the video and subscribe. It helps this content reach more people who might not realize what they're eating every day, and it supports more deep dives like this. Share this with someone you shop or eat with. And let me know in the comments which food surprised you the most, because awareness is the first step. And once you see these foods for what they really are, you can't unsee it.